I know it's really hard to understand because we're so desensitized, but to a lot of vegans, an image like that can be a bit disturbing, and sharing it for shits and giggles comes off as insensitive, if not downright antagonistic. If that's what you want to do, then so be it. But I'm just making you aware of how it reads to some people so you can make informed decisions.
I've been vegan. It wouldn't bother me people showing pictures of the food they like. I wasn't fanatical.
I didn't say it would bother you. I said it bothers others, and that you should know that so you can make informed decisions. If someone was showing pictures of mutilated humans as a joke and someone else was bothered by it, would you call them fanatical? The reason why it never bothered you is because you were never vegan. You only had a vegan diet. It never bothered me either, even after eating vegan for months. It wasn't until the true nature of the atrocity began to sink in, i.e. my satanic cultural indoctrination began to wane, that I found myself disturbed by such things. I don't find it amusing to see the mutilated corpses of mass murder victims arranged into patterns, and I interpret it being posted on this channel as deliberately antagonistic toward me personally and others who share my concern. Am I wrong about that? Are you not trying to flaunt the predator envy behavior of carnism in the face of those who oppose it on moral grounds?
You missed the first part, I've been a vegan. Back then, it wouldn't bother me. So why should I care about bothering others? Am I wrong for not being fanatical, or are they, including yourself, wrong for being fanatical? Then you tell me this fallacy about animals equals humans. It is not the same. If it were the same, then we should kill all animals because they eat plant, and ma plant's rights, etc. Nonsense. Imagine telling all this people, excuse me, poor ones, but your enhanced diet offends me. Please go back to plant only, thanks. One buffalo equals 3,000 people eating first-quality organic protein. His precious life has not went to waste, and they know how to honor it.
I didn't miss it. I addressed it. You were never a vegan. Veganism is a moral position, not a dietary choice. Would you like to make the case that the similarities between humans and pigs, chickens, cows, etc. are equivalent to the similarities between those same animals and plants? Plants are a growth, not a sentient being with a will to direct action. Even if there was some case to made for plant rights, which there isn't because plants have no will to violate, clearly if we must eat someone, the lesser of those evils would be eating the less aware being who doesn't seek escape, squealing and fighting for its life when confronted with aggression. Would you also like to explain how you look at a sentient creature with innumerable similarities to yourself and think, I'd like to murder you for no other reason than I like the taste of your cooked corpse, but that you're not under the sway of satanic conditioning? You're not in a situation where you need to ingest their flesh for survival. You select that option while standing in the same store that has innumerable plant-based options available. You demand their death for your pleasure. But nah, that's a perfectly healthy attitude. We can carry that perspective into a world of peace and harmony, no problem. And if morality is based upon circumstance and the spoils of action not going to waste, then I'm sure you'd have no objection to a desperate person descending upon you in violence to secure some needed resource, so long as they honored you by leaving nothing to the dogs.
I'll hold my staunch disagreement with this for the sake of not confusing the issue, but I'll leave this right here.
Speak freely. There's no issue to confuse. We all know what Bernie's going to say, and his first response already demonstrated the low reading comprehension and lack of philosophical acuity we've come to expect from people on the wrong side of obvious issues. It's not like there's a reasonable likelihood of an actual discussion happening here. I'd like to hear your ideas about plant sentience. My position is that the lights are on, but no one's home. They are mechanistic biological constructs that perform raw stimulus response movement with no intervening personal consciousness. Two qualifications here. This is a loose intellectual model designed to inform moral decision making. I don't claim to have precise knowledge of how consciousness expresses throughout the universe. Also, there appears to be a spectrum rather than a definite delineation between these biological constructs and sentient beings. Mollusks being an example of questionable species. I don't know where we need to draw our lines on diet, but a decision must be made with insufficient knowledge. And I'm going to say that wherever that line is, yams are on one side and donkeys are on the other. For the sake of brevity, I've omitted more than I've included regarding my position on this issue. Hopefully that stuff won't come up and we'll get away with having to go there.
Plants do have feelings. Science has spoken, it's 2020. This cannot be denied any longer. They are sentient, they have brains, they certainly respond to human emotions, etc. They don't understand individuality as we do. Theirs is a completely different kingdom. But they're very alive, even more than us, I dare to say. I too understand veganism as something moral, and therefore ignorant. All moralism is based on dogmas, and all dogmas are based on ignorance. It's a faith thing.
So the person asserting the existence of plant souls and wise tree kings will speak of observable, logically consistent, natural law morality as a faith-based belief. One never knows what the day will bring when they wake up in the morning. Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying that plants embody a form of consciousness. I'm saying that the form of consciousness they have is a form that all living things have, but that in addition to this, animals have another level of consciousness we call sentience. On this basis, the relevant distinction is established. If we did not need to consume living things to express the cosmic intent within us to survive and thrive, I would say to leave the plants alone. But as of right now, most of us need to do this. And so how shall we make the decision on what's appropriate to eat? Even if one wants to make the case that we should only eat seed-bearing fruit, I would not argue it, but an apple and a lamb have two very different roles in this universe. And to suggest that eating one is just as aligned with truth as eating the other is just dishonest. And you're not even saying that. You're saying, plants are sentient too, so let's murder and devour at will. But you won't do it to people, even though the similarities between people and cows are far greater than between cows and bananas. You're lying, to yourself most egregiously. You like the taste. That's all it is. The rest is all just deflection and spin. You like the taste, and you don't care who has to suffer for you to get it, because you're admittedly amoral. If there is no right and wrong, there is no truth. To understand why this is, you must know how morality is grounded in knowable truth itself, not dogma. You don't have that update installed, so your evaluative processing fails. Then you antagonize, because that's what ego ignorance does to validate itself when conscience and innate wisdom is banging at the door. But as of right now, most of us need to do this.
Same applies to people who eat meat.
But you won't do it to people.
Of course not. We're the same species. Cannibalism is not part of our DNA for most of us. Eating other animals is wrong.
You like the taste, and you don't care who has to suffer for you to get it.
Who said that I don't care? This is the most typical veganist fallacy. Saying that people who eat meat don't care about animals suffering. This is simply a lie. I do care, and I want my meat to be organic, free range, treated well up to the last second of life, and even after it. I'm 100% against industrialized food. I respect and honor every life form on this planet, no matter if it becomes my food or not. Now, about morality, I think that it's a sign of ignorance. If you identify with the cosmos rather than your own individuality, you don't need morality and its inherent moral high grounds anymore.
When it comes to care, it sounds like you care about how your meat turns out and not the life of the animal. You can make the argument that you care about the animal's quality of life, then in the same breath you will say, because I like organic. What kind of respect and honor is this? Is it the same respect that you share with your dog or cat? Does our DNA tell us which type of animals we're supposed to eat? Why eat a cow and not a dog? What does our DNA have to show about this?
Wrong again. This is what you prefer to believe about my intentions, not my actual intentions. I'm not against eating dogs. I'm against the people who do it, because in general they're pretty cruel to them for cultural reasons. This is yet another fallacy, because you're grouping all meat eaters, most of the world's population, under the same stereotype. I'm not a dog eater, and if I were, I wouldn't be cruel to them.
I didn't ask if you're against eating dogs. I asked, do you have the same respect to a dog that you do with a cow?
Yes. They're all precious, beautiful creatures, and their life is to be honored. They should never end up being McDonald's burgers. That's sacrilege.
Honored by eating the cow and not the dog?
Again, I don't see big difference between those. Two. Both are highly beautiful, intelligent creatures.
I'm not asking any difference. It's strange to me that you don't eat dogs, but eat a cow and then call this honor and respect. Can you be clear on this?
Dogs are a special case because we culturally assigned them a different role, very different from food. Still, they could be seen as food, and I wouldn't be against it. However, I would think twice before eating a dolphin, whale, gorilla, or elephant. They are too close to our level. Still, if there is need for food and no other option available, I wouldn't be against it. However, I cannot be for cannibalism under any circumstances. It's a no-no.
But earlier, you made the claim that it's not part of our DNA that we don't eat each other. This would imply that the way our DNA is also the reason why we should eat meat. But now, you're making the case that we eat meat because culture said so. Do I read you correctly?
No. Our DNA is the reason why we're not cannibals.
Can you be more clear on those points raised?
I'm against cannibalism. 100%. Our species must be protected at all costs. This is part of our DNA, for most of us at least, and I think that this program must be respected. This is not the case for some other species, like mantises, for instance, for whom cannibalism is allowed in their DNA program.
Can you show any legit science on this? Also, would you still be anti-cannibalism even if the person is dead?
No. If the person is already dead, and there is no other protein source, I'm not against that kind of cannibalism. It's a matter of survival. But those are exceptions, not the rule.
Where does culture come into play? What if one day our DNA evolved so that we no longer eat meat, but there is someone in your culture who still eats meat? Would this be a contradictory?
Well, when and if that happens, we'll see. For now, we're omnivores. There are discussions about what is more or less convenient for humans to eat, but we can and do eat everything except other humans. That makes us omnivores.
How can our DNA even dictate what we should eat?
It's a program, pretty much like this very same software we're using to communicate. It's code. How does the mantis know that it needs to kill and eat the male from its same species after copulation? That would be repulsive to so many other species, including other insects. Answer: it's in its genes, the source code. Firmware.
A human can learn and comprehend things like philosophy, right and wrong, etc. A mantis cannot. And there's already a worldview teaching us that we're not supposed to kill animals for food, called veganism. Either our minds and heart are contradictory to what DNA supposedly dictates, or there's something not aligned. This part is not clear to me.
Again, philosophy is used here as an euphemism for morality, and morality to me is ignorance. A mantis knows better than that. The thing that's not aligned to DNA is morality. But at the same time, it is, because DNA is what makes us imperfect as we are, and philosophers and moral, ignorant beings, etc. Human life is a beautiful paradox. We must embrace every aspect of it and enjoy it. There is no wrong, there are no mistakes.
Is it possible that the DNA can evolve to a point where eating meat is not necessary?
Yes, it's probably already going in that direction. But we're not there yet. The reasons why I believe this may sound ridiculous to some, better not talk about that, but I'm pretty sure that you're right on that. Still a long way to go, maybe thousands of years.
You can actually help it evolve by abstaining from eating animal products. Humans, after all, have the ability to adapt to many situations, including veganism.
I tried it, believe me. I had to go back to meat. No way around it. My very physical job would require brute force from my muscles, and plants weren't giving me that power.
Okay, now you've appealed to personal experience, yet you make the case for human DNA as a dictator, which would imply all-inclusive to all humans. I think an honest response you should have given me from the beginning is, it's just my preference to eat meat.
Yeah, that's hard to believe. And even then, it's a lot easier to just eat some ham. I'm not gonna lie, 1-2 ham sandwich a week would give me enough strength to endure my, until then, pretty hard physical job, almost effortlessly. No need to spend extra money on weird, maybe vegan supplements, just 1-2 sandwich a week.
So to be clear, it's your preference to eat meat.
It's anyone's preference. We're omnivores.
To recap so far, humans eat meat because it's in our DNA, because culture does it, so should you. Personal preference. Can you see how these things can conflict with the other at any time?
No, can you?
Yes. If I was raised in a meat-eating culture and one day I break out of it by becoming vegan, then obviously we can scratch DNA and culture off the list. It would be my personal preference, but it would be supported by morality, which also means love, care, and respect. I'd try my best to be consistent with that through my actions.
Wouldn't that be fanaticism? Scratching things off? Wouldn't it be easier just saying, I don't adapt well to this diet? I'll be an exception in this group, and that's just okay? The DNA rule says humans can eat from every kingdom. It's an inclusive rule, not an exclusive one. It doesn't say humans must eat this or humans must not eat that. That'd be exclusive. That's what morality tries to do. Morality is exclusive.
Fanaticism? No. I'd call it being consistent with my worldviews. I don't eat meat. That being said, based on the DNA trait, would this mean that I am more evolved than you are? Humans can eat from every kingdom. This implies that there are certain things we shouldn't eat. According to my evolved DNA, I say animals are not food for the simple fact that it is a wrong.
Humans can eat from every kingdom is an inclusive rule. The only thing that is excluded from it is other humans, aka cannibalism.
Eating any pork is a tremendous mistake.
There is nothing you shouldn't eat. Your body is able to process food from every kingdom: mineral, vegetal, animal, eukaryotic.
So it's okay to eat humans? Or cats and dogs? Come on, man.
Cannibalism is the only exception. From a DNA standpoint, this is a rule for most animals. Cats and dogs, we can and do eat in many parts of the world. I don't agree with the people who do this, but from a DNA standpoint, they're allowed to do it.
I don't know, man. Kinda sounds like bro science to me.
You cannot honor animals while unnecessarily killing them. Honor means acknowledgement and appreciation, and murder is a denial of the inherent nature of a sentient being, which includes the will to survive and thrive. Killing innocent animals for extraneous food is literally the exact opposite of honoring them. I'm talking about you, not most of us, who you claim need to eat meat, which I also don't accept. You don't eat meat because you need to. You eat it because you like it, and so your ego has come up with a belief system to justify it. When I say you don't care about animals, I don't literally mean you don't care at all. I mean that you care less about their lives and well-being than you do your own meager taste pleasure. You're lying to yourself if you think there's no suffering involved in the meat you personally eat. And let's be honest, you don't go that far out of your way to find out how everything you consume is being produced anyway. You speak out against morality, but I don't think you and I are using that word to mean the same thing. In your estimation, what is morality?
How is it unnecessary when I've been told in this very same channel that vegans often need to buy a recently developed artificial creatine compound in order to stay healthy? Vegans prove that meat is necessary. You can find creatine only in animals, in nature.
Killing innocent animals for extraneous food is literally the exact opposite of honoring them.
The same reasoning can be applied to plants. Killing hundreds of thousands of trees to plant ridiculous amounts of beans for some vegans is the opposite of honoring this, mostly vegetal, planet's life. In some sustainable communes, eco-villages, they already abandoned veganism because they found out that children grow better by eating meat and eggs that chicken provide for free while processing the garbage that the commune generates, regardless of their diet. Vegans do kill trees with their diet, understand this. It is not sustainable either. Both extremes are equally bad. Too much meat and no meat. Both extremes are out of balance. I do care about how my food is produced. My health depends on it. I do my best to get healthy food. Happy animals produce happy and healthy meat. They raise your vibration. Unhealthy or unhappy or tortured animals can only produce death in your body. And whatever your definition of the word morality is, I can assure you, I'm not a moralist. I don't believe in it. Either something is or it isn't. I believe in logic, not in morality.
Morality and logic are both aspects of truth. If you don't believe in morality, you are saying truth doesn't exist. Living beings, like all things in the universe, have an inherent nature. Your free will action can acknowledge, honor that nature or not. In other words, you can act in alignment with truth or a falsehood. A pig's nature includes the will to survive and thrive. If he gets an inkling that you're fixing to kill him, he will try to avoid it. If you persist for the reason of satisfying your own taste pleasure, your actions are out of alignment with the truth of his being as well as yours. How can this be denied? How is this not logic? Where is there any belief required? Please answer this question. All the other diversions are irrelevant. Fruit does not demonstrate a comparable will to survive. Vegans are, at the very least, as healthy and long-lived as meat eaters, creatine notwithstanding. There is no objective need at play. This is a goddamn joke and I'm not playing it anymore. Your spin is pedestrian and trite with a sprinkle of the psychedelic to give it sparkle. Your rhetoric has all the weaving misdirection of a liar, because that's what you are, to yourself most of all. You're the one with the belief system, and it's called slavery. You've been told, so my job is done. Go find us some amusing carcass pics.
It's not about pleasure. You're again appealing to that fallacy. I just wrote a lot of lines about it. You're not reading.
Yeah, I am. I don't believe you. You're appealing to the most moral option, happy meat, to justify your desire. If that wasn't available, you'd just as soon take a less healthy version.
Well, then we're entering some mind-reading territory here. I'm not eating just for pleasure. I do need meat and eggs and milk and honey, because I've already tried veganism for years, and my body couldn't function properly without them. It's a necessity and not just a preference because of pleasure. If you don't believe in my words, then what can I do for you? It's okay, you know my thoughts better than myself. Congratulations.
I'm sure you moved heaven and earth to get your vegan diet right before falling back into old addictions. You know you're not serious about this happy meat thing anyway. You don't wait until you know for a fact how it's produced. You phone it in and think, well, I tried, that's good enough.
Oh, I wasn't addicted at all. I hated meat, and I had to reintroduce it in the form of thin slices of ham, which are mostly collagen, in sandwiches where I wouldn't notice the difference. It was medicine to me, and it worked like a charm. In 2 weeks, I recovered my strength, like magic. About happy meat, it's not moral. It's a fact. You can even notice it in the taste. Good chefs know when an animal has been treated well, and what kind of death it had, just by tasting it. Substantial difference. And oh yeah, they do honor the ingredient. Cows are sacred for most chefs.
A person who's being straightforward and honest doesn't have to reach to anecdotes in every direction to support his position. In fact, the thought never enters his mind.
Anecdote or not, it is my reality and it is my necessity to eat meat. This is a fact. Meat, eggs, milk, and honey.
Sure. And who can argue with that, right? There are 50 other possible explanations for that experience. But you've landed on a very convenient one. Just like your moral philosophy.
The vegan diet is low in, or in some cases, entirely devoid of, several important brain nutrients. Could these shortcomings be affecting vegans' abilities to think? Yeah, I'm probably just imagining things.
Everything but sound philosophy. Anything but plain, honest truth. There's no morality, so I gotta go rape some people now. I need new shoes too. What size do you wear, by the way?
There is no morality. Therefore, I use my well-nurtured brain to ponder the consequences of my acts. Gotta love vitamin B12.
Morality is the explanation of those consequences. You never answered what morality is, then said whatever I mean by it. You probably disagree. I'm showing you the logical implications of that position. You don't recognize it as such because you don't know what you're denying when you deny morality. And yes, there is only one rational definition of morality.
Nobody can know all the consequences in all the possible scenarios. That's why I don't believe in morality. My morality, I call it logic, because it's dynamic, and it is, well, just logic. Do I need morality to tell me that I shouldn't cut my fingers off? By logic, I understand the consequences. Same applies for everything in this universe. We're all one creation. Individuality is just an illusion.
Do you consider yourself a moral relativist?
Not at all. Moral relativism is an exclusive doctrine. I don't deny or doubt anyone's truth as long as it is true in logic. Right or wrong exist in terms of true or false, just not in terms of static morality. My dynamic morality could be simply defined as pure logic.
If that were true, our positions would be in alignment. Your argumentation would demonstrate this too, instead of being all anecdotal. Is logic not exclusive? A or not A are mutually exclusive. Truth is exclusive. I submit that morality is merely about aligning our behavior with truth. I've explained this regarding the nature of sentient beings, but it was ignored. So if you're logic-based, then you recognize the existence of property rights, i.e., to take what others have found, made, or acquired naturally or in trade or as gifts, is a denial of their fundamental nature, as it presumes to make a higher claim upon the bodies and or minds of others than they have over themselves. By existence owe us property rights, I mean that it behooves us to behave by this model as its alignment with truth is significant, such that it will generally yield consequences that serve everyone best, according to the objective conditions that support their thriving. There is exclusivity here. You exclusively have the highest claim to your own body. Negative consequence would result in most cases should I make a higher claim to your body, such that you must work my farm upon my command, for instance. Do you agree with all this? Understand that this is broad strokes. I'm not asserting that there are no rare edge cases where it may be best to behave otherwise. I hold to love as the only law, not rigid, hard and fast rules. It just so happens that love generally rules out slavery.
I posit, hopefully without twisting the words, that with this qualifier plants can be easily concluded as more moral than animals. Nothing aligns their behavior more accurately with truth than a tree rising to the sun or a flower wilting with the frost. Determining whether a being is sentient or not tends to be subjective and speculation at best. How can you prove that your mom is sentient, and can you prove that because your mom is sentient, all humans are sentient? Without more information, we're left with a logical non sequitur for an argument that nobody will defend, but nearly everybody verbalizes. I think it requires an assumption to believe another being outside yourself has the same or similar conscious abilities, especially if highly ambiguous language is used in discernment or no direct non-ambiguous communication is limited or not possible. It is an assumption to assert that a dog is sentient or that all dogs are sentient, and it's likewise an assumption to assert that a tree is not sentient or that all trees are not sentient. Most claims that plants are mechanical could be applied to humans as well. So the argument has to be that plants are only mechanical. I cannot disagree with the former assertion, but the latter is impossible to prove or disprove. I can only proclaim that left with insufficient information to be more than agnostic, I believe that trees and plants alike can make their own decisions, and this would be an essence of will. But I find discerning why that tree grew that apple would require clearly communicating with the tree, which I internalize as my own disability, considering the tree seems to communicate very socially with others. While insofar I've only listened to the audiobook, I need to go back and actually read The Hidden Life of Trees.
Yes, there is much merit in what you say. All of this indeed is not thoroughly understood, but that doesn't mean that we can know nothing. We find that we must eat and eat life. This presents us with a difficult but necessary decision. I think it was once far easier than today, but amidst innumerable choices and beset with horrendously clouded vision of our origins, we find ourselves in one of guidance. We know enough about the inherent nature of the relevant beings to discern that will appears to increase or become magnified with advanced complexity. Humans demonstrate more will than pigs, pigs more than mollusks, and mollusks more than ferns. There are many ways to model and label these observations, but the bottom line is figuring out what to do today. Clearly killing your neighbor because he has something you want is bad form, because it does not duly acknowledge his advanced will. Likewise, we can see that the pig reacts quite similarly to the attempt at violating his will, and so it's rather likely that his experience is akin to our own and derived from a like source. We must redefine certainty and objectivity to represent the limits of their possibility. Man, the subjective being, has no access to the objective, if by that we mean existing outside of subjective experience. Instead, these words can help us distinguish between types of available knowledge, and there's a difference to be noted between knowing that fire burns hay or knowing your friend can be trusted. The former is as certain gets. The latter can never be so. We must eat and eat life. We have every reason to suppose that we are violating less will by eating an apple than we are by killing a pig. It may be pedestrian, but it's all we've got right now, and it's good enough to get by with. The rest is all armchair philosophy of little immediate consequence, though certainly worthy of engaging outside of our current context.
I have difficulty with the notion that a person can feel weak being a vegan and feels invigorated reverting to meat. I also haven't heard a response to clearing trees to make room for fields of beans. Lastly, where is the line between sentient and sentient?
What does sentient mean?
What people feel is a function of many factors, not least of which is their psychology. I consume nothing but fresh juices for a month. Weightlifting, bike riding, going to the beach all day. Never felt better. Individuals within a species do not vary widely in their nutritional needs. Therefore, if anyone can thrive on a vegan diet, it is reasonable to suppose that all can, particularly since all nutrition on planet Earth originates with the sun and the plant life, which converts its energy, making it more accessible to mobile creatures. Clearing trees for beans is a separate issue and is not relevant to the moral issue of claiming ownership over the bodies of other sentient beings. Sentience describes the level of consciousness whereby a being has an advanced form of individualized will. It is a function of complexity whereby more advanced beings demonstrate more direct conscious control over their response to stimuli. It appears to exist as a spectrum rather than a definitive line. Since violation of will is a denial of or lack of due acknowledgement for an essential quality of the being, such action is immoral or wrong because it is misaligned with truth or extant fact. The more will that's present, the more there is to potentially violate. Therefore, if we must eat life, we are morally obliged to eat those forms of life that demonstrate the least amount of individual will.
I should probably preface by saying that this is actually advanced morality territory, so it's not quite as simple as eating plants equals moral, whilst eating meat equals immoral. I should also say that from my own understanding, research, and experience, plants are absolutely 100% conscious and sentient. Going into details of why and how that is will make me go off on a tangent, so for now, let's just assume that this is the case. In which case, in moral terms, it would mean that just as it would be immoral to senselessly cut off someone's arm, it would also be immoral to senselessly cut down a tree. If vegans want to be consistent, you absolutely should care about maintaining integrity of the plant world. The thing is, and the simple fact is, whether you're a meat eater or a plant eater, if you are buying your foods from your local supermarket, you are both in support of massive immoral systems that do damage and harm on ridiculous scales. The only way to be 100% sure that the entire process of harvesting the food was done with full moral integrity is to grow the food yourself. Neither factory or monocultural farming respect nature and do much harm. And on top of all that, the sales tax from purchasing anything from such suppliers only ends up continuing to support human slavery, aka government. So if we are serious about maintaining moral integrity, well, there is none here. The other thing I want to point out is that there is a particular mental leap being made here, by everyone it seems. Anyone who is a fan of Mark Pashio's work will know that he often makes the distinction between an order giver and an order follower. Both are morally culpable, but one of them is more morally culpable than the other. If there's a murder, the order giver is only spouting words, whilst the order follower is doing the actual murdering by pulling the trigger. Similarly, there is a moral difference between those who actually are killing animals for their meat and selling them, and those who purchase and consume such meat. And the same thing applies to the vegan side too, with their processes. The meat purchaser in this case is morally culpable for being a part of the chain, but he is less morally culpable than the people who are doing the actual killing. I see these being conflated as one action, but this distinction is important since we are focused on morality. I'm going to make a controversial statement. Vegans can actually eat meat and still remain 100% true to their moral philosophy. Yes, that's right. You vegans aren't actually against people eating meat if it's truly not just about a dietary preference. If it's really a moral position, then it's about being against murder, not meat. That means if we had a magical meat machine that printed out the perfect chicken dish ready to be eaten, as a vegan, you cannot morally be against anyone eating that, including yourself. Because there's absolutely nothing immoral going on in this process, which is also why someone here brought up the idea of lab-grown meat. Therefore, eating meat is not inherently immoral. And of course, if that's the case with meat, the same applies with plants, fruits, veggies, etc., regardless of plant sentience. What is immoral is all the negative processes that go on behind the scenes to bring you the said food product to your plate. In which case, both vegans and carnists are guilty as charged, as mentioned before. But at the same time, with this clearer viewpoint, the moral burden is lessened on meat eaters if they aren't doing the actual killings, while some moral weight falls on vegans if and until they can prove that their processes did not cause any harm to any insects, birds, trees, etc. And then here's the thing. All of this is actually missing the point because morality is ultimately derived from the higher mind, a higher source. It's not derived from the physical world. This is why not all killings are necessarily immoral, even though from a physical perspective it may look bad, e.g. self-defense. Similarly, eating fruits or eating meat by itself doesn't tell you anything about its moral nature, because no matter what you eat, if it doesn't serve your highest expression, it is immoral to that extent, or moral to that extent. Personally, I think both veganism and carnism are extremist positions. Not all animal products require killing animals, but we undoubtedly are better equipped to handle, digest primarily vegetarian diets. That doesn't mean that eggs have to be off the menu, but it also doesn't mean we should be senselessly killing animals and eating meat all day, every day. Again, I go back to the idea of self-sufficiency. Growing our own foods and raising our own animals is the superior moral choice than what we have going on today. Even if someone wants to kill their own chickens to feed their own family, first of all, that is their karma. And second of all, that is still a massive moral improvement than having these mass genocidal factory machines we got going on today. If you want to be morally perfect, you better learn how to become a breatharian and purely subsist on chi energy. But we're simply not there yet. So at the very least, you're going to have to murder some plants or steal their fruits. And what gives you the right to steal the fruits of their labor? Let's face it, you will never be morally perfect in this world. You probably have killed dozens of bugs on your way to purchasing your foods without even knowing, vegan or not. But if that meal happened to be the perfect nourishment for your body and it allowed you to perform your best work that day, it was likely a good moral choice to make. Immorality begets immorality. There's way too many immoral processes going on in this world to escape it entirely. You literally would have to become a complete hermit. And even there, the dust of modern pollution, immorality, would likely hit your face, even if it's just a little... Oh yeah, I forgot about my dilemma. How cannibalism can be moral and eating fruit can be grossly immoral. Well, okay, I had a couple of examples in mind, but since I need to go for now, I'll leave you with the lame, but totally true, examples. Cannibalism. One day as I was chewing my food voraciously, I accidentally bit into the side of mouth and a tiny piece of my own inner cheek fell into my tongue. I then swallowed it on instinct because I still had some food in my mouth. Now, technically, I had eaten a part of myself there, and technically, since I'm human, that was cannibalism. But come on, surely this can't be immoral? And fruit? Oh, that's easy. It would be immoral for you to eat poisonous, rotten fruit. You will likely get sick, worst case scenario, even die. And that is certainly not serving your highest expression.
How can one reasonably equate picking flowers to decapitating cows, chickens, and pigs?
It's reasonably equal for a bear to eat peanuts and eat fish, or a human. They're omnivores. And so we are. Here we got an omnivore engaging in free will violation of another individual of the same kingdom. Another omnivore engaging in free will violation of another individual of the same kingdom. So according to the moral agency theory, if a child with an intelligence comparable to that of a mature bear, for example, kills a pigeon and eats it, it's not doing anything wrong, right? It could even kill another child. And that would be okay, correct? What about teaching these disgusting omnivores and carnivores from other species, just like we teach our own children? Shall we do that? Hey, Mr. Bear, from now on, you will only live off seeds and roots. Please, forget about fish and honey.
So leaving free will beings to be free is authoritarianism, but claiming you have a greater claim to their bodies than they do, and killing them at will, is not. Way to describe a thing as its exact opposite. But hey, evil is nothing if not perversion. Don't blame morality for your own lack of understanding. It's not because anyone says so. It's because things in this universe have a nature, and acknowledging that nature via our actions is right or moral, and not acknowledging it is wrong. You were asked what morality is and could not define it, but you'll wave the flag of opposition to it high and proud. Then, bewilderingly, you'll claim to be a man of strict logic. You may be, but not all the way. It's possible to have a chain of sound logic running for 99 consecutive, but all rooted in a false premise. Happens all the time, and it's an oft-employed strategy of the deceivers of our world. If you're satisfied with that, then this whole thing goes way deeper. It's a self-respect issue, and those that don't love themselves can't love anyone else. Innocent creatures beware.
I'm a free will being, and I want to eat what my body is able to process. In the case of this body that I have, it can process well meat, eggs, honey, etc. My will is to take advantage of that ability.
You were asked what morality is and could not define it.
Yes, I did define it. You missed it. Morality is authoritarianism.
No, your ego will is not what's being cited, but the inherent free will nature of your victims. You don't need animal products. That body is not significantly different from all other human bodies, such that it requires an entirely different type of diet. Millions of vegans are at least as healthy as anyone else. You did it wrong. And really, do you honestly believe that a creature with zero natural proclivity for catching and killing other creatures could be reliant on a food source they can hardly, if ever, procure without the aid of technology? It's common sense, never mind moral philosophy. If you define freedom as being able to do whatever you want, you're a Satanist. Morality is merely acknowledgement of truth, as I've described 10 times with no rebuttal. And truth is limiting by nature. As for something to be true, its opposite is not. You should know that, Captain Logic.
I do need animal products. I already told you my story. My body functions better with them, even if in small quantities. Your truth does not equal truth. Morality is bogus. Millions of vegans are not as healthy as anyone else. This is a lie.
One solo BBC article to be fully on board with that position. Again, that's childish. It's like reading a verse out of the Quran and then declaring that you therefore understand Islam and all Muslims. I may even expect more from a child.
It references many articles.
So if being vegan shedded of 3 years of your lifespan, do you still not consider it for that reason? Even if it has tremendous ecological benefits?
It has tremendous ecological benefits is subjective. Self-sustainable communes abandon veganism because having chickens and pigs is basically for free for them. They offer high-quality proteins while processing the commune's garbage, again, for free.
Do you belong to one of those communes?
Looks like nobody read my long-ass post. Oh well.
How can we equate picking flowers to the decapitation of cows, chickens, and pigs?
That's not the example I used. But the point is that when a tree is cut down, you are killing the tree. The tree can be killed and it can die, just like any other sentient being. The issue is the plant world is far more complex, and plants and trees and part of a greater system. Simply cutting off a branch or picking up some flowers doesn't equate to decapitate an entire cow. Maybe cutting off a few fingers would be a better equation. But the point being either way, damage is being done objectively. And if something is sentient in the 3D world, you can technically kill it.
Let me sum it up. Veganism is nonsense. I can agree with that. I think that even this channel's name is wrong. What is a carnist anyway? It should be #vegans is omnivorism. Veganism is anti-natural, in essence, since it denies our omnivore nature.
No, because believing you need animal products or that it's moral to kill innocent beings for your pleasure or convenience is a false belief system, thus carnism. If there's any error, it's with the word veganism, which is not a belief system, but an acknowledgement of extant reality, just like anarchism. And here's a central point for you. What is morality? Saying it's authoritarianism implies many things I'm sure you don't mean. If it's a synonym, then all qualities of one apply to the other.
You insist with the pleasure-convenience fallacy. You're hopeless at this point. Because you don't need it. Any answer to the problem of you not being able to catch or kill any source of meat without the aid of technology. I do need it. I'm an omnivore, and this body that I have in particular doesn't function well without animal protein.
Impossible, because that would imply a human can need something it is incapable of procuring. Humans have no natural proclivity for catching and killing other creatures.
Is this bear incapable of procuring?
Humans are slow, weak, and devoid of natural weapons. Bears are not.
Are these kids incapable of procuring? Is this guy incapable of procuring?
Okay, so then revert to a bug diet, and then we'll address the morality of that.
Like people eating worms in Africa. We've been doing it for millennia. Bugs are animals. We are able to process them. We eat them. We're able to give them to chickens and eat the chicken as well. Even ants do these things. They have cattle as well. Did you know that? We're not the only ones using technology or cattle.
Okay, so your argument is that humans need bugs to eat or they won't survive?
My argument is that humans can eat bugs, and so we're free to do it. It's part of our design.
Eating insects is sustainable, and I hold cows, chickens, and pigs on a higher end of the hierarchy than insects.
We also can rape children.
But that's a logical fallacy, and you know it. Come on. You can do better than that. Try it.
It's still morally superior to be vegan than an insectivore.
No, because can and should are two different things.
My body is designed to process bugs and animal protein and animal subproducts just fine. If my body, for any reason, needs to do so, I claim that I'm totally free to do it.
So because we can, then we ought to. Not an argument.
And for the same reason, as my body is designed to endure long periods of time without processing such animal-derived products, if I need, for any reason, to stop ingesting them, I claim that I'm free to do it as well. Ramadan, anyone?
Do you believe in a higher power, will, or law?
I believe in logic.
So you don't believe there is anything higher in power than yourself?
I believe that it is possible, according to logic.
If that's the case, it would be a higher logic than the logic, you know?
Why do you claim to own the lives of all animals but humans?
I didn't claim that. I ask for forgiveness before killing a chicken. I pray for its soul.
Hey, dude, or getting distracted from my questioning. You don't believe morality exists, right?
But that depends how you're defining morality, what your conception of it is.
Forgiveness for what? You make no sense at all. You feel bad about it or something? Why would you? There's no such thing as right and wrong. If we can do it, we're free to do it.
For taking its life, I don't feel bad. I know that it's a sad situation for the chicken. I have empathy as most human being. Same for fruits. They are the children of a tree.
Morality is that which serves your highest expression, to put it simply. Anything that doesn't is immoral to that degree. Take a tree, for example. It has a moral inclination too, to reach its highest, greatest potential.
I do have empathy for plants too. This is common in Japanese and Native American cultures.
I already defined morality and you repeatedly ignored it. It is and can only be aligning our behavior with truth. And no, not everything is truth. Chickens have free will. So do people. To act in a way that does not duly acknowledge that fact is no different than trying to build a rocket while ignoring the relevant math. The result will be a circumstance that is less than optimal relative to the goal. The goal of life, at least in part, is to thrive, i.e., authentically express our inherent nature. Killing innocent chickens diminishes thriving for all involved in numerous ways. It screws with our own psychology, for one. It's also not as healthy for us as other options. And as one who understands etheric fields and such, you should know that a tossed stone, upsetting the natural order, will ripple throughout time and space.
When a father needs to feed his family, the life of a chicken pales in comparison. There's empathy with the chicken and its family, but its protein is too valuable in that moment and has to be taken.
Fine. What about when there's an abundance of food present?
Children cannot grow well in a vegan diet. It's irresponsible, and that's a scientific fact.
No, it isn't. Plants, air, and water don't have owners already, and I'll even concede every plant but fruit just for the sake of argument. Fruit is definitively to be eaten by clear, obvious cosmic intent. The tree or bush don't have to die either. I believe fruit is man's original natural diet anyway. Screw off. I'm done. Well, as usual, you've done a first-rate job at showing us a vast array of angles on this issue. Indeed, it's always worth noting that we're 1,000 miles down a filthy hellhole, and there's no such thing as coming up clean. No matter how much you climb, there's also no chance of coming out at all in this lifetime. So even being mostly moral is off the table, and perfection ain't even part of the convo. The best we can do is make some progress and encourage others to do the same. Maybe in 300 years, humanity will be high enough to begin feeling the faintest bit of sun on its face. As usual, there's a bit too much here to tackle without generating a post 3 times the length of yours. I feel like it's far beneath us to even be having the vegan conversation over and over. What I want to say to repentless carnists is this: you don't own them. That's it. What kind of psychopath thinks he can just walk up to innocent people minding their own business and take their bodies, their life, or their stuff? Pigs ain't yours. You can't own them and raise them. Somebody else owns that already, and it's the guy who's inside of it. You think you'd understand this, being that you're a guy inside a body too, and get very fucking upset if somebody drops the door on you as you exit the mall. No less comes for your hide with hunger lust in his eyes. Eggs ain't yours. Cow milk ain't yours. Leave these people the hell alone and get your own stuff. It's insane that we need a tsunami of moral philosophy to sort this out. That's why I get mad. Many of us ain't trying hard enough. I have that same inkling that on a higher level, this stuff ain't such a big deal as it seems here. But I also think that there's a right way to proceed, wherever you are. And if you don't care enough to earnestly and honestly figure it out, then you're disrespecting the universe, God, yourself, whatever, just pissing on everything like an immature ego golem.
Trees have soul. Plants have collective consciousness. They do want to live. They do want to be left alone most of the time. The fact that they're slower than animals doesn't mean anything to me. They have the same right to live and be respected. We still kill them, violate their will, and sometimes exterminate them. You and I do it all the time. It's part of our nature.
I don't know what you mean by souls, but in any case, they have less will than animals. All of us have collective consciousness, but higher life forms have individual will in addition to that. If you gotta hurt someone, hurt the one who is least aware of it. Plus, there's larger issues of human psychology and natural law consequence that you couldn't begin to understand from where you are now. Stop talking to me. I know a concrete head when I see one, and this is a waste of our time. I've made whatever points I needed to for onlookers.
Bernie does have a moral standard when it comes to what we ought to eat. It's just obviously not as strict of a standard as Blackwell's. Personally, I like higher moral standards for many reasons. If you want to see a world that operates by lowly moral standards, well, we're living in such a world right now, and it's not that great. However, as already acknowledged, moral perfectionism is simply not attainable, and if you've ever stepped on a bug before, it's already too late. I wanted to expand upon a couple of things. First, I think what Bernie Sandfrog was trying to convey to vegans is that since plants are sentient and alive, it's immoral to murder and steal their fruits, just as it would be immoral to murder a chicken and steal its eggs. The same argument would apply. We don't own them. A justification is being made on the vegan side, with the belief that plants may not be sentient and or may be less aware, so it's less immoral to eat them. That is an assumption, and I would personally disagree. Because firstly, I think how morality is being derived there is not right to begin with. And secondly, the plant world is differently aware, and actually technically more aware, because it's all a huge interconnected system. I don't want to go on a tangent, but if you want to do more research on this, I would suggest looking up mycelial networks, particularly of trees. But even for the sake of argument, let's say the plant kingdom is less aware and they have less will. If we are looking through our moral perfectionism glasses, it's still not a good enough excuse/justification. It would still technically be immoral to murder such a life form, because life is life, and why should one particular life form be more deserving of life than another? And the same notion would apply to the idea of theft and ownership. If we apply the same logic to our own species, then we are essentially saying those among us who are less aware, less conscious, less intelligent, etc., are less deserving of life. And I think that's not quite right. Preferring one life form over another is known as speciesism. And I think there's a lot of that going on in this debate, lol. Now, I'm well aware that we all need to eat something, but that is also precisely why moral perfectionism has to go out the window. And we need to look through the glasses of advanced morality instead. And as some of you know, advanced morality can get highly nuanced. When it comes to what we ought to eat at any given moment, there exists a perfect combination of food that our body requires to function at its absolute maximum best capacity. Simultaneously, within a particular circumstance, there exists a perfect or most moral path to acquire all those foods, a perfect way to combine the foods if necessary. There's even a perfect, most moral way to eat and excrete the foods and so on. This is a more refined understanding of morality in application. It's simply not as simple as eating a broccoli and thinking you're being perfectly moral. There is so much more to consider. For example, if that broccoli was produced using child slave labor and all kinds of insects and birds were sacrificed in the process, it may not actually be that moral for you to consume it, even though the food itself may technically be vegan. However, perhaps a better, more moral choice would have been to simply use my magical meat machine that prints out the perfect combination of protein/nutrition that your body requires in that moment. Absolutely perfect, right down to the molecular levels. Ironically, in this little thought experiment, the broccoli would be less vegan than the meat, in moral terms. Now, in case you are critical of me using a fictional magical meat machine, there are moral equivalent real-life examples that are quite practical, which we shall explore. Let's say Bernie Sandfroge is insistent that his body needs meat to survive and thrive. Okay, let's go with it, but there is a most moral way to go about it. We already established that factory farming methods are immoral, so we're going to use a different method to acquire some meat. Bernie is going to make friends with some animal predators. Could be any. Pick your favorites. Now, predators will naturally hunt for prey when they need to eat. Let's say one day, Bernie just tags along with his predator friends and just observes what they do. Eventually, the predators find some prey and bring some back to Bernie, and because they're friends, they are happy to share some of their prey with Bernie. Bernie then takes some of that meat back home, cooks it, and eats it. If you think about what happened in this scenario, morally it's equivalent enough to the magical meat machine. The predators were going to catch and eat their prey with or without Bernie, because that's what they are and what they do. That is their ecological function as predators, and of course they're hungry. Morally, Bernie did nothing wrong in acquiring the meat in this scenario. Whether it was moral for Bernie to eat the meat is a separate issue. But we are going along with Bernie's need to eat meat. That, and don't forget, eating meat is not inherently immoral. Think back to the magical meat machine. Feel free to challenge this scenario if you find any flaws with it, but from what I can see, Bernie did not kill anything, nor is he contributing to immoral systems, like factory farming. He was simply gifted some meat from some friendly predators, and hence benefited from a natural predator-prey cycle. And here's one way we could analyze this scenario using advanced morality. We would look at the net result of every holistic system involved, rather than isolating and focusing on a particular incident. Advanced morality does go even beyond this, because it considers spiritual dynamics too. But for the sake of not going crazy, let's just stick with a couple of variables: the prey species as a whole, the predators, and Bernie. Keep in mind that predators usually go for the weakest prey, simply because they're easier to catch, which strengthens the prey population as a whole and helps maintain ecological balance. So in this scenario, who benefits? The predators obviously benefit, the species as a whole benefit, and Bernie benefits. The only one that loses out is the prey. Whether Bernie is included in the picture or not, the ecological system as a whole still benefits from this predation. Seeing it from a larger perspective, this predation serves a higher good. If we include Bernie in the picture, one extra being has simply benefited from this natural process. In short, this is morally acquired meat, like the magical meat machine, and I can see no wrongdoing being done here by Bernie if he acquires and consumes his meat this way. I would like to extend this larger perspective lens to a mini-farm scenario, because I wanted to address the issue of stealing eggs. Let's say I had a small farm with a few chickens, lots of plants, and a beehive. Now, just like we don't really own our pets, instead, we are more akin to being their stewards, who take on the responsibility to take care of them and their well-being. I have this mindset with everything in this mini-farm: the plants, the chickens, the bees, etc. I take care of everything to the best of my abilities. I make sure the chickens are fully protected from any predators. I make sure they are well fed and free to roam as they please, etc. In short, these are some very happy chickens. And one day, they lay some eggs. Now, we all know I can't reasonably get the chickens' consent on whether I could take some of their eggs for my own consumption. And if I just go ahead and take some of their eggs anyway, that would be theft, right? Let's say there was a real need for me to acquire at least a couple of eggs. Bernie's child desperately needs some in order to grow up strong and healthy. Okay, so now we have a valid enough need, and we know chickens are not capable of giving proper consent to anything, much like a baby or a young child. Can we use our prerogative as a steward and take some of their eggs anyway? If we did that, would that be moral or immoral? Blackwell, you might say it's immoral, because it's theft, and theft is of course immoral. I want to argue that if the conditions are right, it can be moral to take some of their eggs within reason, because it can be a fair exchange of energy instead of being viewed as theft. I spent lots of my time, energy, and resources taking care of the chickens, making sure they're well fed and protected from predators. And in return for this stewardship, I would like some of their produce for my own sustenance, so I can continue taking care of them and protecting them. Every gardener farmer does the same thing when they grow their own foods. They get something in return for their efforts. They literally reap what they sow. Looking at it more holistically, the chickens and bees benefit from all the various plants and seeds, food, pollen. The plants benefit from the chickens and bees, fertilization, pollination, moving seeds around, etc. And I benefit from all the various produce, fruits, veggies, eggs, honey, etc. So the equation looks like this. Chickens benefit, bees benefit, plants benefit, I benefit. I'm using this symbol to signify an increase benefit. Every life form in this equation has benefited. If you take my right away to consume the produce I help produce, be it eggs, honey, fruits, etc., because it's technically theft and technically I don't own any of them and therefore have no right to take anything from them, this is what happens to the equation. Chickens benefit, bees benefit, plants benefit, me, zero. I get zero benefits. Keep this up and I will no longer be able to keep up my stewardship. Eventually, the predators may break in and eat the chickens. So now it looks like this. Bees benefit, plants benefit. From a larger perspective, this is arguably a net loss. So morally speaking, perhaps this is worse, even though we averted the immoral theft. But I suggest that the taking of the eggs can be a fair exchange of energy that helps keep the stewardship going, which can result in a greater net benefit in the whole system, proving that it was a greater moral choice in the long run. This is advanced morality. We're not just isolating and focusing on the nature of a particular action, the taking of the eggs being perceived as theft, but we observe the net result effects of the system as a whole. If it's a net positive, then the choices involved were likely moral. If it's a net negative, then the choices involved were likely immoral or less moral. To summarize, I believe I have demonstrated moral ways to acquire and consume meat and eggs, and the same ideas will often apply to other animal products like honey, milk, etc. I showed that it's possible to have a moral non-vegan diet and an immoral vegan diet, the tainted broccoli. The morality is in how we go about acquiring these foods, and to what extent they help us reach our full potential, or not, and what occurs to the potentials of all other life systems involved.
Morality is about alignment. Is it more moral, in your terms, to eat a pig or a cantaloupe? I think it's quite obviously more in alignment with the inherent nature of a melon to be eaten than it is with the pig.
Nope. For me, eating a pig is definitely out of alignment, which is why I have never had any, and probably never will. I was using Bernie the carnist omnivorist as the moral subject here, and, for the sake of argument, I took his need for meat to be true, in which case, do you see a moral issue in the way he acquired his meat? In the example above.
I don't know. I don't concede the root premise, so I don't really want to waste time on the rest of it. I'm referring to the idea that plants are sentient and the conclusion that therefore we can eat whoever we want, which is typically what comes after that assertion.
Okay, that's not really my argument. I think that was Bernie's argument. As you know, moral philosophy is a subject of great interest to me, and what I'm trying to do here is explore another edge case. I'm not actually that concerned about veganism versus carnism. I'm more concerned with the morality of it all. I'm not convinced that it's as simple as veganism good versus carnism, evil. I think the reality of it is a bit more muddled. We could get into plant sentience, but would you be willing to wade through another wall of text? We don't actually need to go there, because as one of my previous posts alluded to what degree plants are sentient is largely irrelevant. Because even if they behave just like animals and ran away when being hunted, and felt pain when ripping off their fruits, etc., if their fruits are most conducive to our inherent nature, then we still ought to go after them for our food. For carnivores, eating other animals is more conducive to their inherent nature, because they definitely will not thrive on a vegan diet simply because it's not right for their bodily composition. So the food that is most conducive to our inherent nature, which in turn helps us reach our highest expression potential, is the most moral food of choice. From what I can see, this is the primary factor that determines the degree of morality, not the level of sentience or what the actual food is, or even the idea that we're doing less harm by sticking to fruits, veg only, which is arguable, because that depends on so many other factors. And by all means, challenge me on this if you disagree. This is what I'm exploring. So let's say there was an edge case where someone's inherent nature / highest expression was genuinely better met through a meat-based diet. So much so, let's even say that fruits and veg make them sick, or they are allergic. Wouldn't it be moral for them to simply eat what works best for them? If murder / theft is the issue, that's what my lengthy posts were attempting to explore. Different ways this can be averted for such cases. And not believing plants are sentient doesn't make them not sentient. Some people not that long ago believed animals weren't sentient either. But either way, that doesn't really change anything. Because even if animals were not sentient, and plants were, if plant food is most conducive to our inherent nature, then going after sentient plants would be most moral. Because it helps us reach our highest expression potential. I'll be honest, from all the discussions I've seen on this subject, I feel like we are stuck on a Newtonian level of understanding when I feel there is a quantum level reality to all this. I'm trying to get there, but there is much to reconsider.